Minnesota Timberwolves. Last year, they were 42-40, finished 8th in the West after, I can't remember if they lost or won the play-in, but whatever. They finished 8th in the West, and they lost in 5 in the first round to Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Of course, the biggest thing with this team is Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards has proved himself to be one of the best rising stars in the league over the past few years. He was an all-star. Was he an all-star? I'm pretty sure he was an all-star last year, but I can't remember. Yeah, he was an all-star. He was an all-star last year, and now some people say he can have that big jump to like MVP status, and that is crazy claim. I mean, he has that potential, of course, because he's Anthony Edwards, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe not yet, but maybe one day, maybe not yet. I mean, prove me wrong 100%, but Anthony Edwards is just a really good player. He's solidified himself as the best player on this team over Karl-Anthony Towns. But Cat is still amazing because he's Karl-Anthony Towns. These two are both first overall picks with tons of potential who showed out in their first few years in the league. And now we're just ready to see what they can do from now on. The crazy thing is, this is Karl-Anthony Towns' 9th year in the NBA. 9 years in the NBA is crazy because I remember when Karl-Anthony Towns was drafted when I was a little boy. Cut that out. I remember when Karl-Anthony Towns was drafted, and now he's like a solid veteran. Like, he's considered a veteran player. That is ridiculous. But yeah, Anthony Edwards is one of the best rising stars in the league. He can shoot, he can finish at the rim, he's a solid defender. I mean, if he could just, he's good. There's no questions I have about him. I know he's gonna be good. How good will he be? I don't expect him to be an MVP level, but I know he's gonna be a solid all-star caliber player. Now, when you look at the rest of this team, the Rudy Gobert trade was frowned upon by a lot of people last year because they saw Rudy Gobert in the regular season with Cat and it didn't fit well. And maybe coming into the second year, they make it work. Maybe. I'm hoping they do because I like this team. Karl-Anthony Towns is a guy who can shoot, and he's just a big man who can score. He's a really good big man. And you have Rudy Gobert, who's pretty much the opposite. He's a big man who can play defense, and he's really good at playing defense. And when you think about it that way, these two should coexist perfectly, especially because Karl-Anthony Towns is a guy who can play on the perimeter, shoot from 3, and you have Rudy Gobert, who's in the post most of the time. And hypothetically, that should work. And I guess with the second year under the belt, with the first year under their belt and coming into the second year, you can see them now working it out where these two can coexist, practicing, making sure it works where Anthony Edwards can still do his thing, because Anthony Edwards did say it felt crowded when Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy were on the court together. It was hard for him to do what he was supposed to do his job, score. And so if they made it work in this second year, I'd love to see it, and this team would be scary because if you remember, 4 of these guys actually on this team have been all-stars at some point in his career. And it's not like they've regressed a significant amount since then. Karl-Anthony Towns is still like that. Rudy can still do what he's supposed to do. You have Anthony Edwards, who's a rising star, and Mike Conley, who's another guy on this team. Actually an underrated pickup who I really liked. And he could still be a nice little point guard just to facilitate this offense, this whole team. So I really like the makeup of this team, if I'm being honest, especially the starting lineup. You have Mike Conley, who's a facilitating point guard, Anthony Edwards, who's your rising star shooting guard, Cat, who's a star at big man, Rudy Gobert, who's a really good defensive big man, and Jaden McDaniels, who's the last guy in the starting lineup who I haven't mentioned yet. He's a really good defender. He can shoot. He's a pretty good guy, 3-and-D guy, who adds some stuff to this team. And so if you look at this starting lineup alone, this is definitely a top team in the West, at least in my opinion. And I mean, even this whole team is really good. Now you have Naz Reid, who's a center who can shoot, and he's been really good in preseason, at least from what I've seen. You have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton. They made a few signings in this offseason just to add to that bench, and I like the changes they made. There was that one issue last year with Kyle Anderson and Rudy Gobert that was kind of funny. I don't think that's going to be a huge problem coming into this next few seasons, or into this next season. But, I mean, if they can make this whole team cohesively work, I think it can be really good. I think it can be really, really good. That's really the main questions I had. If Rudy and Cat can coexist and they can make it all work, I think Mike Conley can low-key be really good when it comes to that, because he's a point guard who's worked with big men who work in the post, and if he can kind of facilitate them and help them work it out, help Rudy know where he's supposed to be, help Cat know where he's supposed to be, something like that, this team can be really good. That's why I really like the Mike Conley fit on this team, because he's an underrated guy who can low-key help this team fit, work in a system perfectly, you know what I'm saying? Aside from that, there's not really much else I have to say about this team. I mean, you have Leonard Miller, who's a guy who they drafted, and I mean, most of y'all probably don't even know that name, but I scouted him before the draft, and I actually really liked his game as a guy who could shoot and get to the basket and play some defense. So, I like the addition of him to the team. I mean, I don't know how many minutes he's going to get, but if he did get minutes, that would be cool. But yeah, they have a very good core, good big men, mid guard depth, but honestly, their guard depth isn't that bad because they have Shake Milton, they have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and of course, Mike Conley and Anthony Edwards. And, I mean, it's not horrible. It's not horrible. We'll see how it works this season. If Nickeil Alexander-Walker could do well, because this bench doesn't have a solidified, other than Naz Reid, I guess, they don't have a solidified guy who's like the leader of the bench. If Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Shake Milton could do that, or Troy Brown Jr., they just have a bunch of guys who can fit pretty well on a bench rotation. And if they could all make it work, that's probably going to be the title of this video. Can Cat and Rudy coexist or something like that? But yeah, overall, there's not much else I have to say about this team. I like it. I hope they make it work. I hope the team is good, and I'm excited because this team, I like the way they're built. So if they could figure it out 100%, then I hope people will look back on the Rudy trade and be like, honestly, it's not that bad, because maybe the Timberwolves get some success out of it. If they can get Anthony Edwards past the first round, W. But yeah, that's all I have to talk about for this team, really. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment down below any tips, tricks, or topics. And tell me what you think about the Timberwolves, man. I'm excited to hear your thoughts. What do you think about them? How good do you think they'll be this season? And all that stuff. Tell me down below. And yeah, I'm out.